Things have come to a pretty pass. Our romance is growing flat. For you like this and the other, while I go for this and that. Goodness knows what the end will be. Oh, I don't know where I'm at. It looks as if we two will never be one. Something must be done.
You say either, I say either. You say neither, and I say neither. Either, either, and either, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. Yes, you like potato, and I like potato. You like tomato, and I like tomato. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you like pajamas, I like pajamas. I'll wear pajamas, give up pajamas.
Attention is focused once again on the Middle East, where events in Iran have taken a dramatic double twist. Forced to flee his palace in Tehran, the Shah and his queen arrive in Rome after an alleged attempt by the Imperial Guard to arrest Dr. Mossadegh and a refusal by the Shah to dissolve Parliament at Mossadegh's request.
In Iran, Britain suffered another reverse with the nationalization of its huge oil industry and confiscation of the properties amid scenes of violence.
The British turned for help to the CIA with tales of Mideast oil coming under Soviet control. This oil-rich region from the Caspian to the Persian Gulf, unlike Korea, was critical to Western interests. Democratically elected, immensely popular Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was the first Iranian to earn a Doctor of Laws degree from a European university. Time magazine named him 1951's Man of the Year. He inspired the Arab masses throughout the region who pulsated with nationalist fever, ready to take over their own affairs. Dulles and his brother Alan, who was now head of the CIA, knew Mossadegh was not a communist, but feared a takeover by the small Communist Party. And with Eisenhower's full approval, deployed the CIA to get rid of the madman Mossadegh, buying up journalists, military officers, members of parliament, and ominously the services of the extremist Warriors of Islam, a terrorist gang. In August of '53, organized mobs caused chaos in Tehran, spreading rumors that Mossadegh was Jewish and communist. The CIA and British intelligence paid street thugs to destroy mosques. Among the rioters was Ayatollah Khomeini, Iran's future leader. Mossadegh and thousands of his supporters were arrested for treason, some executed. Reinstating the Shah on the throne, the U.S. turned on the financial spigots for the next 25 years, creating its strongest military ally in the Middle East. Cutting down the British share, 5 U.S. oil companies now received 40% ownership of a new consortium.
شما اگر تاریخ ایران رو بدونید در سالهای 50 اختلافی که بین مصدق و شاه بود در این جمله خلاصه میشد: شاه باید سلطنت کند نه حکومت. مصدق مثل نخست وزیرهای قبلی نبود. مصدق میخواست برگرده به قانون اساسی و شاه فقط بشه سلطنت مشروطه و شاه اینو نمیخواست. شاه میدید که روز به روز داره قدرتش از دست میده.
کار اینا اینجوری بود، یه راست میبردن اتاق شکنده. اگر شما قرار بگیرن کتاب بگیرن کسی راجع به شما حرف زده باشه، انقدر میزنن تا بالاخره پدر شما رو در بیارن که شما هم 2 کلام بیشتر بگید.
What I can say is that we are now sophisticated enough to use the same methods that you people are using.
میگرفتن دستا رو میبستن و پاها رو هم میبستن. انواع اقسام شلاقا داشتن که دردهای مختلف میده. مثلا با شلاق کلوفتر میزنن ولی بعد این مثلا میبینن پا خیلی باد کرده با شلاق باریکتر میزنن. متوجه این؟ چون بعض وقتا یه چیز خیلی کلوف که میزنن اصلا میزنه میشکنه انگشتا رو. ما اصلا آزادی نداشتیم، امنیت نداشتیم. دلمون میخواست بخونیم، دلمون میخواست بفهمیم، دلمون میخواست راحت باشیم. هر قدم که من نگاه میکنم میبینم که بهترین آدم ها رو دور من میگیرن. برای چی؟ برای کتاب خوندن، برای یه ذره ضد شاه حرف زدن. نمیشد. یعنی به ما میگفتن بله شما برید دختربازی بکنید، علافی بکنید، دنبال پول برید، حتی حاضر بهتون پولم بدیم، ولی حرف سیاسی نزنید. و اینم نمیشه، تو هیچ جامعه‌ای نمیشه.
Jimmy Carter issued a secret presidential finding shortly after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and he directed CIA to go ahead and use all means to help the Afghans resist this.
Another advance for the Mujahideen is the arrival of reinforcements, volunteers from Islamic countries that have answered the call to jihad.
The Arab volunteers began to arrive in small numbers at the beginning of the war, and their numbers and their role grew as the war developed.
One of the leaders among the Arab fighters is a wealthy young Saudi named Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden quickly expands his role in the jihad.
By the mid to late 80s, he began to do more than just hand out cash. He started to build things. Along the border, where the key supply routes ran, he began to construct with imported bulldozers and other equipment a kind of border infrastructure that would create secure depots, supplies, hospitals, and camps.
U.S. National Security Advisor Brzezinski flew to Pakistan to set about rallying resistance. He wanted to arm the Mujahideen without revealing America's role. On the Afghan border near the Khyber Pass, he urged the soldiers of God to redouble their efforts.
We know of their deep belief in God, and we are confident that their struggle will succeed. That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your fight will prevail and you'll have your homes and your mosques back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
Iraq invaded Iran in September of 1980. It is important to note that the ban on the sale of weapons was in force until 1982, when it was lifted with the strong objections from Congress. The U.S. began the transfer of helicopters to Iraq in December of 1982. In 1983, Banco Nazionale del Lavoro of Italy and its branch in Atlanta began to funnel $5 billion in unreported loans to Iraq with the blessing and official approval of the U.S. government. Donald Rumsfeld, a private citizen, met with Saddam Hussein as a political envoy of the Reagan administration on December 20th of 1983. It is a little-known fact that he was also president and CEO of the G.D. Cyril Pharmaceutical Company. According to Howard Teicher, author of Twin Pillars to Desert Storm, he and Rumsfeld traveled to Baghdad on December 17th in order to lay the groundwork for the presumption of full diplomatic relations between the United States and Iraq. The Reagan administration began secretly allowing Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Egypt to transfer United States weapons, including howitzers, Huey helicopters, and bombs to Iraq. These shipments violated the Arms Export Control Act. From 1985 through 1989, the Department of Commerce licensed 70 biological exports to Iraq, including approximately 21 batches of lethal strains of anthrax, shipments of weapons-grade Clostridium botulinum, and West Nile fever virus. In April of 1988, the Department of Commerce approved the shipment of chemicals used in the manufacture of mustard gas. The U.S., with the approval of the CDC and the Department of Commerce, armed Iraq illegally from 1985 through 1989.
Today you're going to hear not hearsay evidence. You're going to hear eyewitnesses who have lived through these atrocities by the Iraqi people.
And we finally call on Naira to testify.
The second week after invasion, I volunteered at the Al-Adan hospital with 12 other women who wanted to help as well. I was the youngest volunteer. The other women were from 20 to 30 years old. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying. I saw and talked to a friend of mine after his torture and released by the Iraqis. He is 22, but he looked as though he could have been an old man. The Iraqis dunked his head into a swimming pool until he almost drowned. They pulled out his fingernails and applied electric shock to sensitive private parts of his body. He was lucky to survive. I'm glad I'm 15, old enough to remember Kuwait before Saddam Hussein destroyed it, and young enough to rebuild it. Thank you.
You have performed a service of incalculable value.
Citizens for a Free Kuwait wanted to get public opinion behind a full-scale commitment to liberate their country. So they paid $10.7 million to America's biggest public relations company, Hill and Knowlton, Inc. At the time Congressman Porter and Lantos chaired the hearing on Kuwait, they also headed a private group, the Congressional Human Rights Foundation. MacArthur discovered a disturbing link between the Human Rights Foundation and the PR firm that was selling the war.
The Congressional Human Rights Foundation literally operates out of Hill and Knowlton's offices. Citizens for a Free Kuwait donated $50,000 to the Congressional Human Rights Foundation after Iraq invaded Kuwait.
Daylight brings only the digging of yet more graves as bodies...
Soon there were reports of mass burials of premature babies in Kuwait, dumped from incubators which were then trucked to Baghdad.
The Iraqis tore the respirators from their incubators.
We were able to go around the hospitals to count the incubators and find that, possibly with one or two that had been misplaced, that none were missing. So none of the incubators were moved in the first place. Moreover, it seemed quite clear that there weren't any deaths which had been deliberately the cause of the Iraqis having gone in and stolen equipment.
She seemed to be alone before the Congressional Human Rights Caucus identified only as a Kuwaiti escapee. But we've discovered she wasn't alone at all. And she wasn't just a simple Kuwaiti escapee. In fact, just a few seats away was her father, Kuwait's ambassador to the United States and Canada. Naira quickly slipped out of the caucus hearing, back into the protective folds of her family, the extended royal family of Kuwait, headed by the Emir Jabir al-Sabah.
They had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
It's a proud day for America, and by God, we've kicked Vietnam syndrome once and for all.
CNN's Carl Rochelle is here with me, just came up. Carl, I know we can't be very specific given these restrictions, but within those parameters, what did you see?
Well, what I saw, I didn't see anything hit. I looked almost straight above us. There's a vapor trail coming from my right to my left, and there's a cloud of something. It looks like it might have been an explosion, a cloud. Oh, I'd say my apologies for that. He's putting on a gas mask. There hasn't been any gas dropped here that we could tell. You smell anything? No. You may smell some of the fumes from a missile exhaust going off.
Je suis un journaliste américain. Oh, I love this country so much.
You guys just don't have a clue.
This is a Scud. You can tell it by its distinctive label. Now, when the missile is launched, the first thing you look for is the plume sticking out behind it. Now, when you detect this, you can tell it's been launched. Thank you.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And, you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
The date, I believe, was in December 20th, 1983. You were meeting with Saddam Hussein. I think we have some video of that. Of that meeting. Tell me what was going on during this
Where did you get this video? From the Iraqi television?
This is from Iraqi television.
When did they give it to you? Recently or
we've
back then?
We've dug this out of the CNN library.
I see. Isn't that interesting?
This administration never said that the 9/11 attacks were orchestrated between Saddam and al-Qaeda. We did say there were numerous contacts between Saddam Hussein and al-Qaeda. For example, Iraqi intelligence officers met with bin Laden, the head of al-Qaeda, in the Sudan. There's numerous contacts between the two. Now, he was a threat because he had terrorist connections, not only al-Qaeda connections, but other connections to terrorist organizations.
I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia, and we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen, and let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places.
There's an early 2014 email from Hillary Clinton, so not so long after she left Secretary of State, to her campaign manager, John Podesta. That email, it states that ISIS, is funded by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, the governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The dodge has always been that's it's just some rogue princes using their cut of the oil money to do whatever they like, but actually the government disapproves. But that email says that no, it is the governments of Saudi and the government and Qatar that have been funding ISIS. And our Clinton emails reveal significant discussion about it. The largest ever arms deal in the world was made with Saudi Arabia, more than $80 billion. In fact, during her tenure as Secretary of State, total arms exports from the United States, in terms of their dollar value, doubled.
And of course, the consequence of that is that this notorious terrorist jihadist group called ISIL or ISIS is created largely with money from the very people who are giving money to the Clinton Foundation.
Yes.
I will promise you this, that if we have not
gotten our troops out by the time I am president, it is the first thing I will do. I will get our troops home. We will bring an end to this war. You can take that to the bank.
So does that mean you can tell us today that you will not change the 16-month timetable?
Here's what I can tell you. That I will bring our troops out at a pace of 1 to 2 brigades per month. And at that pace, we will have our combat troops out in 16 months. That is what I intend to do as President of the United States.
Iraq. That's why I'm going to bring this war to a close. That's why we can get our troops out, our combat troops out within 16 months.
Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker.
Well, you know, when she first got in and was named Speaker, I met her, and I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. But I was surprised that she didn't do more in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It was almost, it just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war. Well, he lied. He got us into the war with lies.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran.
This is the $110 billion arms deal that the Trump administration has been talking about even before President Trump landed in Saudi Arabia. It certainly adds up in a lot of dollars. There is some question as to what the offsets are, and when it comes to the manufacture of some of this hardware, will it be Americans that benefit from it, or will it be Saudis? Because part of the deal, apparently, at least when it comes to helicopters, they will be manufacturing them in Saudi Arabia, which would mean those jobs are not going to be in the U.S. Saudi Arabia very much wants to begin beefing up its own military industry as far as being able to make the weapons themselves and not just buy them from the United States. The United States likes to see Saudi Arabia with a strong military because it is seen as a counter to the forces of Iran, and you can bet that Iran is watching the president's visit very carefully.
I have not heard any estimates of how many young American men and women might die in such a war, or how many tens of thousands of women and children in Iraq might also be killed. As a caring nation, we should do everything we can to prevent the horrible suffering that a war will cause. War must be the last recourse in international relations, not the first.
Either, or neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing off. Oh yes, you like potato,
and you like potato.
You like tomato,
and you like tomato.
Potato,
potato,
tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. But if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And if we ever part, then that might break my heart. So if you like pajamas, I'll wear pajamas.
You got pajamas.
For we know we need each other, so we better call the calling